Did you know there's an island nation that has been shaped by gods, emperors, earthquakes, and samurai blades, yet managed to reinvent itself time and time again, rising from near oblivion to global prominence? Japan, a land where myth and memory blur, where ancient rituals coexist with robots, and where resilience has been tested by every force, nature, and man could throw at it. But how did this chain of islands, so isolated at the edge of Asia, give rise to one of the world's most unique and enduring civilizations? Today, we travel through thousands of years, from the mists of mythological creation, through samurai wars and imperial courts, all the way to the devastating bombs of 1945 and the technological rebirth that followed. This is the entire history of Japan told not through cold facts, but through the lives, struggles, and ambitions of the people who built it. Long before there were emperors or castles, there were forests. The first humans arrived in the Japanese archipelago around 35,000 years ago, likely crossing land bridges from Siberia and the Korean peninsula during the Ice Age. They were hunter-gatherers, carving tools from obsidian and surviving off the bounty of sea and forest. But then something extraordinary happened. Around 14,000 BCE, the Jomon culture emerged. These people made some of the world's earliest known pottery, long before agriculture was widespread elsewhere. They lived in harmony with nature, building pit dwellings, crafting ornate ceramics, and worshipping natural spirits. Theirs was a world of animism, mystery, and quiet endurance. Thousands of years later, around 300 BCE, change arrived from across the sea. The Yayoi people, possibly migrants from the Asian mainland, brought new technologies, wetrush farming, bronze weapons, and weaving. With them came new hierarchies, new conflicts, and the first steps toward a unified society. Villages grew into clans. Clans began to fight. And somewhere, in the cloudy centuries between myth and history, a central figure emerged. According to Japanese legend, the first emperor was Imu, a direct descendant of the sun goddess Amaterasu, who founded the Yamato dynasty in 660 BC. Whether myth or fact, the Yamato clan did become dominant around the 3rd to 5th centuries CE, and their rise marked the beginning of what we now recognize as Imperial Japan. By the Asuka period, 538 to 710 CE, Japan was looking outward. Buddhism arrived from Korea and China, bringing not only new beliefs but entire worldviews. Temples rose from the earth, scrolls of sutras replaced oral chants, and the ruling elite began to craft a government modeled on China's powerful 10th dynasty. But this was never mere imitation. Japan absorbed, adapted, and transformed these influences into something uniquely its own. By the Nara period, 710 to 794, Japan had a capital city modeled after China's Chang'an, Jukyo, modern-day Nara. Here, the first official histories were written. The imperial court flourished, Buddhist schools multiplied, and Shinto, the indigenous faith, was carefully interwoven with the new Buddhist order. Then came the Heian period, 794-1185, a golden age of art, poetry, and courtly refinement. The capital moved to Heiankyo, now Kyoto, where the aristocracy retreated into a world of beauty, ritual, and elegance. Here, Japan created one of its greatest literary treasures, The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu, often called the world's first novel. But while nobles wrote poetry in lantern-lit chambers, power was slipping from their hands. Outside the capital, rival clans gathered strength. They wore armor instead of silk. They rode horses instead of palanquins, and they lived by the sword. The age of the samurai had begun. By the late 12th century, two powerful clans, the Taira and the Minamoto, waged a brutal civil war. It ended in 1185 with the victory of Minamoto no Yoritomo, who didn't claim the throne but instead took a new title, shogun, or general. In 1192, the emperor granted him official authority, and the Kamakura shogunate was born. Japan now had two rulers, an emperor in name, and a shogun in reality. The samurai dominated Japan for centuries to come. They upheld a strict code of loyalty and honor, Bushido, and lived lives defined by discipline and death. But even the samurai weren't invincible. In the 13th century, Japan faced an external threat like no other. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, sent massive Mongol fleets to invade Japan in 1274 and again in 1281. The first invasion was repelled by fierce fighting and a typhoon. The second was utterly destroyed by a storm so powerful the Japanese believed it was divine. They called it the kamikaze, the divine wind, and for centuries it stood as a symbol of Japan's invincibility. But inside Japan, power continued to fracture. The Ashikaga shogunate, 1336 to 1573, brought civil unrest. The Anin War ignited a century of conflict known as the Sengoku period, or warring states. Feudal lords, or daimyo, vied for power, building massive castles and raising private armies. It was chaos. But from this chaos rose three towering figures. Oda Nobunaga began the process of unifying Japan, using firearms and ruthless tactics to crush rivals. He was betrayed by a general and died before his vision was complete. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a peasant-turned-general, finished the unification. He outlawed weapons among commoners, ordered massive construction, and even invaded Korea, but he too died without securing lasting peace. That final task fell to Tokugawa Ieyasu, who crushed all opposition at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600 and became shogun in 1603. The Tokugawa shogunate ushered in over 250 years of Pesta Edo period. During this time, Japan closed its doors to the world. Foreigners were banned. Christianity was suppressed. Trade was restricted to a few Dutch and Chinese merchants in Nagasaki. But inside, Japan thrived. Cities like Edo, now Tokyo, exploded in population. The merchant class grew wealthy, kabuki theater, woodblock prints, and haiku poetry flourished. Samurai became bureaucrats. Peasants cultivated rice fields in carefully ordered villages. Yet change was coming. In 1853, 4 black ships appeared in Edo Bay. They were American warships, commanded by Commodore Matthew Perry, demanding Japan open to trade. The shogunate, facing superior firepower, reluctantly signed treaties. The spell of isolation was broken. Within 2 decades, the Tokugawa regime collapsed. A new era was born. In 1868, Emperor Meiji was restored to power. But this was no return to old ways. It was a revolution. The Meiji Restoration transformed Japan into a modern state. Railroads were built, factories roared to life. The military was reformed. Western dress science and industry swept across the nation. Within decades, Japan had become an industrial and military power, one that stunned the world when it defeated China in 1895 and Russia in 1905. But ambition has a price. In the early 20th century, Japan expanded aggressively, annexing Korea, seizing Manchuria, and entering World War I as a victorious ally. By the 1930s, nationalism and militarism had gripped the government. The invasion of China in 1937 led to horrific atrocities, including the Nanjing Massacre, and then came the fateful attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. World War II plunged Japan into darkness. The war dragged on, cities burned, soldiers perished, and in August 1945, 2 American atomic bombs destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The emperor, for the first time, spoke directly to the people. Japan surrendered. It was devastation, but it wasn't the end. Under American occupation, Japan was rebuilt. A new constitution enshrined democracy. The military was disbanded. Women gained the right to vote. By the 1950s and 60s, the economy surged. Japan became a global leader in technology, automobiles, and electronics. From the wreckage of war rose the neon glow of Tokyo, a symbol of rebirth. Today, Japan remains a nation of paradoxes and poetry. It is modern and ancient. It reveres tradition yet leads in innovation. It has endured earthquakes, tsunamis, economic bubbles, and emerged resilient every time. Its story is not one of easy triumphs. It is a story of survival, of transformation, of quiet strength. And through it all, the spirit of Japan endures in the call of a Shinto shrine bell, the rustle of bamboo in Kyoto's gardens, the silence of a Hiroshima peace park. A story not just of emperors and battles, but of a people who continue to shape the world, without forgetting who they are. Thank you for watching. If this journey through Japan's history moved you, intrigued you, or left you with questions, leave a comment below. I read them all. Like the video to support our work, and don't forget to subscribe for more deeply human stories from the past. History isn't just about dates and wars. It's about identity, memory, and the choices that carry across centuries. And Japan's story is one we should never forget.